guys, and welcome back to another episode of MineZ. So today, we are doing another MineZ History video. So, the last one was well received by you guys, so I figured why not give it a shot. Anemos was suggested by Legend of Wiga, and I was already in the middle of working on it, so I'm like, hey, you know what, let's continue through this. So yeah, basically, Anemos was one of the very first dungeons that was introduced into MineZ, around the same time as Laurelful Mines and Sacrificial Pit. The first rendition of Anemos was much different than the one we have today. There was no boss room, first of all, and there was no wave room. The dungeon was completely soloable. What I have here for you today is a completely remade version of the old Anemos, which you can download as a schematic by following the link in the description. This took me quite a while to build, because there wasn't much footage on the internet, and the only person to record the entire video was a guy named Brington, and this was back in July of 2012. What I had to do is I had to copy block for block his walkthrough and put it into a schematic of the other Anemos. This video is the only one I could find and shows the entire run through of the dungeon. You can check that out by, again, following a link in the description. Even before you enter the dungeon, there's a sign that warns you not to log out inside the dungeon, as you would be killed upon logging back in. This actually did happen, as I found a few cases where people were kicked from the server during reboots and tried complaining to be teleported away from inside the dungeon so they wouldn't die upon logging in. As you've already noticed, the beginning room is a little bit different. There are 4 symbols which no longer exist in the MineZ world, and I suppose those represented early versions of the elemental gods. In order to proceed through the first room, you simply had to put 4 items on the 4 wooden plates, in any order, and the door would open. Notice how the floor is obsidian rather than lava. If you missed a jump and fell into the obsidian, you would simply be teleported back to the start of the dungeon. Apparently, while this feature was still new, any player from across the map who fell into obsidian would be teleported to Anemos, as demonstrated by this fellow who is teleported to Evergreen Manor. There was no glass on any of the floors like there is today. This made the jumps much easier and more clear, since then it has changed from glass to black stained glass. Most of Anemos was basically a giant maze. There was no spire room as it is often referred to, and there's very little parkour otherwise. If you were a Todd is God fan back in the day, you would have seen his first Anemos video, where he died 3 times in the first lava room, and Wolf Chundered ran around the maze, going up and down water pipes, finally to end up dying in the second lava room. In this version of the dungeon, the sign that says Remember actually had a significance. In the second lava room, there are 6 plates in a similar pattern to that on the sign. The 3 O's represented plates that should not be stepped on, whereas the X's were plates that were required to open the door. Stepping on the O plates didn't do anything harmful other than reset the room. That is why the room was soloable and didn't require a second person to press the button. Today, all the plates need to be touched at least once, and the reset button pushed in order to open the iron door, rather than just stepping on the 3 plates that are represented by the O's. There's only one correct path in the old dungeon, and no signs saying that the wind flows in many directions. The glass maze was included with most of the right sides, save the potion parkour. Instead of a wave room, there was a room with 3 possible exits. You would need to take a left and then a few 3-block jumps, and basically take a detour around that middle room. You would then need to go through a very small and simple iron door maze, and you'd end up in a room where you were required to put 4 items on 4 specific plates. Once you cracked the puzzle, a piston bridge would appear, and you could claim your loot of 4 dungeon chests. The exit was a little bit long, but you had to swim up a really long pipe and go out a piston door where you would reappear outside of the mountain. The old version of Anemos did not stay long, however, and it was closed in August of 2012, lasting only 2 or 3 months. During this time, there were many repairs and additions, and also rumors of the boss room being a wither fight, which was very exciting when it was released. Anemos was closed for a long time, and it wasn't until June of 2013 that it was reopened with most of the features that we have in the dungeon today. The boss room has changed a few times since it was released. Similar to how it is now, once the room is started, there is a small timer to get into the boss room. The difference, however, is that you would be trapped in a small room, and pigmen would spawn, killing anyone who waited behind. This video was courtesy of Dangerous Binky back in 2013. Fitting the theme of the witherheads would shoot out of the rows of platforms that didn't have lights lit up, which made this fight extremely difficult. Now what happens is witherheads shoot out from the teeth that make ambient noise above the player's head, rather than having any significance in the fight. If you ran out of arrows at the time, fear not, for I used to shoot arrows out of the dispensers that represent teeth, so you could refill by jumping to from platform to platform. The only other major changes to the dungeon since its facelift in 2013 was the redesigned Wave Room by Mychon Void, one of the few fan-made submissions that have made it to the MineZ world in recent times. The loot of this dungeon has changed a few times, from really bad dungeon chests to unique legendaries, being the Kikajumanji and the Rabbit's Feet, which are both currently unavailable. As you may know, if you beat Anemos today, you receive any of the items of the gods, namely the Simoon's Song, Simoon's Melody, Simoon's Sonata, and the Simoon's Tune, plus 24 dungeon outs. Anemos is arguably the hardest dungeon in the map, and this loot definitely makes it worth it. Hidden behind the walls of Anemos Sanctum, you can find symbols of Magic the Gathering. Nicola Levy, one of the head builders at the time and the person who built the Old Spire, enjoyed the trading card game Magic the Gathering, and so she built all the symbols behind the Wave Room. Another interesting build is the Blue Man, which used to be visible when falling down the Thread the Needle and through some glass. Alrighty guys, so I hope you enjoyed this episode of MineZ History. If you did, a like is always appreciated. If you have any suggestions for future videos, please feel free to leave them in the comments section below. As you may have noticed, I have a Twitter account just promoting that shamelessly, but yeah, it's basically my name at the end. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.